Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT15, and BT15 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to be able to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is actually going to come from the new advanced deck, which is going to be Double Typhoon, and this is going to be more of an upgrade guide for the deck as of BT15. So as far as the goal of the Double Typhoon deck, it is split between utilizing both Terriermon and Lopmon and trying to combine their native strengths. Terriermon is more of a classic green style deck where it wants to suspend the opponent's Digimon down and take advantage of them being suspended, while Lopmon is playing more in line with the Alliance ability, suspending your own Digimon down to be able to boost the DP and damage that your main attacker is able to do. I think that the starter deck does an okay job at blending those two themes together, but ultimately those two themes are at odds with one another, and the deck seems to naturally want to support Terriermon more than Lopmon. So this kind of comes from the best cards of the deck, it being just Mega Gargamon Ace as a really strong card to be able to make stack building more consistent. The biggest weakness of the deck is just it's weak to certain removal types like Digivolve, just because the deck can skip some stages and it is relying on protection against deletion. So it does have some weaknesses to those alternative forms of removal, as well as the deck also not having the tendency to be able to vastly increase its DP past certain thresholds, so against certain decks it could just get walled out if it's not able to clear those big defensive bodies. So as far as going into Double Typhoon, when you're buying a single copy of the starter or advanced deck, this is just what you're expected to see in terms of the deck list. Then the deck does come with some extra goodies, so it's going to obviously come with the 54 card deck itself, some sleeves, a paper playmat, memory gauge, a secret pack, 2 copies of the Magnamon card, as well as 8 alt art reprints. Then when it comes to the reprints, for the most part, the deck only cares about the Kokomon, Lopmon, and Rapidmon, depending on how your approach to the deck actually is, and the other reprints are just some nice added bonuses for various other decks, being really decent generic staples. Then, as far as the recommended list, if you're going off of it 2 starter decks, this is just what you're most likely going to end up with, trying to combine the decks and to get as much power out of the deck as you possibly can. But as far as how you're actually going to build the deck, utilizing cards even further past 2 copies of the starter deck, this is where the deck kind of starts to get interesting on where you're going to end up putting your focus on. So I'm going to be focusing more on the Terriermon side because that's just the better half in my opinion. So with all that said and done, let's finally dive into the deck profile to see what the starter deck Double Typhoon has to offer fully upgraded in BT15. I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gummimon. So this is the brand new starter deck 17 Gummimon, and this is just the generic draw engine for the deck. If you really wanted to, you could run a 5th egg. The 5th egg could be another draw engine style egg, but I also think that there is some value to having some extra ways to be able to DP boost your Digimon, like with what EX5 Nyarmon is doing. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running a fairly simple and straightforward Terriermon lineup with a little support from Lopmon. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of the BT8 Terriermon as the main dedicated digging or searching tool for the deck, because it allows us to check the top 5 and add a Gargamon or Rapidmon named card from among them into our hand. If you really wanted to, depending on how your build shapes up, you could easily run the EX4 version of this card. It's fulfilling a very similar role, just helping us make the deck more consistent. Then I'm also going to be running 4 copies of the BT3 Terriermon, so we have an in-engine floodgate, and we might as well run it because there's no harm in doing so because of the name-based synergy we're taking advantage of, while also being a floodgate to try to slow the opponent down as much as we possibly can. Then I'm going to be running 4 copies of the Starter Deck 17 Terriermon as the brand new latest and greatest Terriermon card. So this card is already pretty decent at helping us DP boost as a good inheritable ability, but the main ability is also really powerful at being able to play out our cards more efficiently, where during the main once per turn, we get to play out a green Tamer or a level 3 Digimon with Lopmon in its name from our hand and reduce the cost by 2, so it allows us to easily have access at setting up our cards. And the Lopmon I'm going to be running as the supporting rookie for the deck is going to be 2 copies of the Starter Deck 17 Lopmon, so it has that same inheritable ability as we saw with the Starter Deck 17 Terriermon, which is good having that consistent way on trying to DP boost our Digimon, but the main ability is actually what we're looking for out of this card, because during our main once per turn, one of our Digimon gains the Alliance ability for the turn, increasing the deck's overall damage output and ways to be able to DP boost our Digimon. Next, when it comes to the level 4s, I am going to be running cards that obviously are going to support more with what Terriermon is doing. So as a result, I'm going to be running 4 copies of the BT8 Rapidmon. Not only does this card Digivolve cheaper with our Terriermons, but it also comes with the Armor Purge ability, having some nice protection against being deleted, where it basically just gets to de-Digivolve back into the Terriermon, ready for us to use, and we have some really good cards that this is obviously going to be synergizing with, like our Floodgate and like our Starter Deck 17 Terriermon. But the protection is not only really good on this card, but it also has a decent when Digivolving ability to try to help control the opponent's field as well, where we get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon for each Tamer that we have in play, and then up to 3 of the opponent's suspended Digimon gets minus 5,000 DP, which allows this card to beat over even certain level 6s, having a really good way at not only just suspending the opponent's Digimon down, but being able to reduce them down to nothing or be able to beat them up. Then I'm going to be running 4 copies of the brand new Starter 17 Rapidmon as well, because it also has that same alternative Digivolution cost, as well as in addition to the Armor Purge, it also has the Blocker ability for more defensive possibilities, as well as an All Turns ability where once per turn, when this Digimon becomes suspended, one of your opponent's Digimon and all of their security Digimon gain minus 4,000 DP until the end of the opponent's turn, as another really decent way to debuff the opponent's Digimon. Then this Rapidmon actually does have an inheritable ability for some extra DP gaining, as we saw with a lot of the other Starter Deck 17 cards. And then just to flesh out what the level 4s are capable of, I'm also going to be running 2 copies of Gargamon from Starter Deck 17. So this can actually Digivolve cheaper on top of our Lopmons as well, so there's no real downside to utilizing this card, as well as its overall synergy with Lopmon, because during your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon becomes suspended, again, most likely when we're going to be attacking with this card, one of our Digimon gains jamming for the turn, so we could use this in combination with the Lopmon to be able to give one of our Digimon Alliance and jamming when it's going to be swinging, making that attack as safe as possible. Then its inheritable ability, again, is nothing we haven't seen, just more ways for DP boosting. And then when it comes to the level 5s, we're not really running a whole lot of level 5s because we kind of just don't need to. The best one of the deck is the only one we're going to be running, and that is going to be 4 copies of the brand new Starter Deck 17 Rapidmon. So he could Digivolve a little bit more efficiently on top of our Gargamons and our Rapidmons, and he has an on-play and when Digivolving ability to de-Digivolve one of the opponent's Digimon, which is already really annoying as an alternative form to potentially try to weaken their Digimon. Then, if we have a green Tamer in play, this Digimon can't be deleted by the opponent's card effects and can't be returned to the hand or to the bottom of the deck until the end of the opponent's turn, having even more ways to be able to protect our Digimon. Then he even comes with his own nice inheritable ability, where during all turns, when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon by battle, we get to trash the top card of their security stack, basically acting like Piercing, but a little bit better because it's safer, just straight up getting rid of the security instead of checking it. And then when it comes to the level 6s, we're kind of following that same style of idea where we don't need anything else outside of Mega Gargamon Ace because of how strong this card is. So this card has two ways we could Digivolve on top of them. We could Digivolve him a little bit cheaper on top of our level 5s, or we could Digivolve him utilizing the Rapidmon name, which allows us to be able to Digivolve him on top of our level 4s. So this is really insane, paired up with the fact that he's an Ace Digimon, so all we need to do is get a level 4 out, and we're already ready to Ace into our level 6. And this card is an absolute beast of a card to use because he natively comes with the blocker and reboot ability, having good offensive and defensive capabilities, as well as a nice when Digivolving ability to suspend two of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers down, and then two of their Digimon or Tamers can't unsuspend or Digivolve until the end of their turn. So locking them out of being able to Digivolve or use their cards is just absolutely insane and can be borderline backbreaking at times. Then he also has a nice secondary when Digivolving ability that also triggers at the end of the attack, where once per turn we get to unsuspend this Digimon, where this card could potentially multi-attack. And then when it comes to the level 7s, you don't necessarily have to run a level 7. You could think about running a supporting level 6, but I just figured there's no real reason not to run a really decent level 7. And Green has a couple of different options for us to choose from. I'm going to be running one copy of Quartzmon. Then if you don't necessarily have access to Quartzmon and still want to play a powerful level 7, Omnimon Merciful Mode is just another really decent, generically good level 7 you could think about running. And then when it comes to the Tamers, I'm going to be running two copies of the BT1 Mimi. So this is still just the best generic memory fixing Tamer for the deck, as well as having the extra ability to gain an additional raising phase, essentially, as long as we have a level 5 or higher green Digimon in play, which synergizes insanely well with the 4 copies of Willis that we're going to be running. So Willis has an on-play ability where we get to hatch one Digi-Egg in an empty space in our raising or breeding area. So the idea between that ability is we're going to use Willis to hatch a new egg and Mimi to raise that egg out right away, allowing us to have some really easy extra aggression utilizing our raising area. Then Willis also has some really decent tempo potential attached to him, where when our Digimon would Digivolve into a Digimon with Gargamon or Rapidmon in its name, we get to suspend them down and reduce the Digivolution cost by 1, making our evolutions as cheap as we can make them. And then when it comes to the option lineup, I'm going to be running a pretty decent option lineup in my opinion on a good combination of tempo and control. So I'm going to run one copy of Hidden Potential Discovered just because we can run the one copy, and this card is still insane at being able to have some extra free tempo, allowing us to suspend one of our Digimon to reduce the next cost of our Digivolution by 5, allowing us to climb our stages super easily and efficiently, especially when we're trying to use Mega Gargamon Ace. Then we obviously need cards to try to find Mega Gargamon Ace and some of our other cards more effectively, so I'm going to be running 4 copies of Agility Training just to try to help increase the consistency as well as the main ability of Delay when this card is set up to, again, try to reduce the cost of our evolutions, making our cards that much more efficient. Then I'm also going to run 4 copies of Double Typhoon. So Double Typhoon is a really decent card at trying to help us, again, increase our consistency, digging the top 3 for any green Digimon and any green Tamer. Then this card's going to go into the battle area to use its second ability of Delay for a later turn to be able to play out a Terriermon or a Lotmon from our hand for free, which is just really nice at being able to help set up our field to the state that we need it to be in. Then out of our security, we also get to suspend 2 of the opponent's Digimon down and then place this card into the battle area. So compared to a lot of the other boost cards or training cards, this just helps us with some extra control as well because it's also a security threat. And speaking of security threats, the last 2 options of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Giant Missile. So not only does this card activate its main ability from our security, but its main ability is really, really strong at clearing out problematic Digimon. So this card allows us to be able to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down, then return one of their suspended Digimon to the bottom of the deck, and then one of the opponent's Digimon can't unsuspend until the end of the opponent's turn. So it's basically like Grandisol, but better, but at the end of the day, this is just the big hard removal card, and it could be any removal card you feel like you want to run. But that's pretty much it for my interpretation of the deck. The deck, it does have some decent wiggle room on some different tech and tools that you could think about incorporating, all depending on what you have access to, what you want to play, and what your expected meta is going to be that you're going to be playing against. Then, if you wanted to, you could even try to shift over to a Lotmon Alliance build. I'm not going to be covering that build specifically, but this is just the general idea on how you would approach building towards that Alliance half of the deck, because it is supported in the starter deck, and it did get some pretty decent new tech and tools to be able to work with. Then, as far as just some other useful cards, there are just a decent amount of other cards that you could run to further customize the deck. So we have other Terriermon, Gargamon, and Rapidmon based cards. We do have the Henry Tamers that we could utilize. We have other level 5s and level 6s in green that are decent Ace Digimon, as well as some other green generic Tamers removal and Digimon that we could incorporate. And the crazy thing about this deck is that it is also going to be getting some future support. So we're going to be getting a brand new Terriermon X and Rapidmon X as some really good additions to look forward to in BT16 to further enhance what this deck is going to do, making it even stronger than what it currently is.